I need people to hear this because it speaks to the heart of like 90% of what we talk about on the show, which is just trying to wake up party loyalists to see the bigger picture and to be willing and able and capable of finding fault within their own party when it's not living up to its values, when it's not living up to your expectations. I think until we can get people back to like, and I feel the same way about people who like love Donald Trump at all costs, like will find no fault in him. It's like, if you can't find fault in that man, you ain't trying hard enough. You ain't trying at all. And the same with most politicians. If you can't find fault in Bob Ferguson, no matter how many times we serve it up to you on a silver platter, like you really ought to take a step back and ask yourself, like, why am I so loyal to this politician? Why am I so loyal to a political party when they've failed here and here and here? You can still support them. You can still vote for them. But it shouldn't preclude any of us from being able to call them out when they don't live up to their duties, to the promises that they make to you. So I had Sandeep Kaushik on the Sunday show, and Sandeep, I've known Sandeep for a long time. He is not the most fringe Democrat in the state of Washington. He's a Democratic political consultant. He helped with the winning campaigns this cycle of Nick Brown, the new Attorney General, Dave Updegrove, the new Commissioner of Public Lands, and he also helped to defeat 3 of the 4 Let's Go Washington initiatives that we fought very hard in favor of. So we had a long conversation on the Sunday show, but just like sitting across from him, one of the things I wanted to try to understand is that dynamic of, given all these horrible things happening in the state of Washington, why is it so hard to convince blue voters to do something different? Here's a clip. Help me get my mind around it, okay?
Yeah.
I look at the state, and I know you have a lot of disappointments with some of the issues we're facing that I do. So we have that in common, right? How can you look at the state and be happy with the trajectory of the homeless crisis? How can we look at the state and be happy with the trajectory of the drug abuse or mental health crisis? Or the affordability crisis, which is worse.
Right. Real problem.
Or the crime crisis. Like, all those things, inarguably, are worse than they were 15 years ago. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's probably right. Yeah. Well, I think that is right.
That is right.
Yeah.
I was like, probably, you know, that is right.
I'm going to
get I fundamentally have a challenge with people who will continue to put the same politicians in power, given the failures on so many critical issues.
Right.
Whether you have, you know, Dave Reichert campaign be damned, because I look at it and I think, why wouldn't you want to try something different? Help me understand that mindset. Yeah.
Well, first of all, to win, for a Republican to win in Washington State, you got to break with the national brand. The national Republican brand, and particularly in the era of Trump and MAGA, is
He called Trump a joke. Well, how else do you break from the national Republican brand?
I mean, he spoke out of both sides of his mouth. He went to Republican audiences and said, "Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I love Trump," and and which was a stupid thing for him to do because there's a Democratic tracker there who's recording it, and that stuff showed up in ads. And,
I agree.
And at that point, I see that and I'm like, okay, I can't trust this guy. Like, even if he tells me he doesn't like Trump to my face, he's going to these other audiences and saying something completely different. And so I think he had a credibility issue on that kind of stuff. Now, look, I think if he had come out of I do think this was a potentially, for all the problems you cite, and there was polling early in this cycle that showed that a moderate Republican could potentially win this race. We had an open seat for the first time in 12 years. There was some polling that had Reichert up early on, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a race to be had here, but it would have taken a candidate to say directly to voters in the state, I am a different kind of Republican. And in fact, I disagree with my party on a whole bunch of things. And let me really spell it out for you where I will break with Trump and MAGA on, you know, I think it would have been good to have actually had a pro-choice Republican who could say that, right? Or to say, like, I'm fine on the social issues, gay marriage. But
well, why does all of that, Sandeep, eclipse the clear and present crises in the state? Why does, like, you know, Dave Reichert may or may not like Donald Trump? You know, why does that eclipse everything I just mentioned that's killing people at record numbers, that's making areas of the state unlivable? Why in the minds of a Democratic voter does that eclipse it?
Well, the partisan divide has gotten so wide, right? I mean, the sort of tribal thing, the difference between the two parties. As we were talking on that panel we were on the other day, and I said the overarching story of the last 30 or 40 years in American politics is the story of extreme polarization. Like the two parties have just moved farther and farther apart from each other. So it's very hard to get somebody to break out of their tribal commitments and mindsets to cross over. People can be upset about crime or homelessness or addiction or whatever, but they're not going to cross over and vote for a Republican unless that Republican fundamentally seems like is aligned with them on their values. And, that's where the abortion issue is a very effective way of saying Dave Reichert's, he's probably one of those MAGA dudes, and you can't,
But is it a Democratic value to let people die on the streets with needles in their arms? Is it a Democratic value to let the homicide rate double over 12 years? That's what I struggle with. Like, me to you, Sandeep, and you're one of these people. You have a functioning brain. I don't think that your brain, if I cracked your head open and opened it up, is just blue. Right. I believe that you're capable of looking at these issues with an independent thought in your mind. Totally. So speak for yourself. Yeah. You care about all those issues I just laid out, and I'm guessing you voted for Bob Ferguson.
I did, yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Right.
Why?
Well, for one thing, so as you and I have talked about before, I thought the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party in part, but really sort of progressivism, like kind of went off the rails a bit in 2019, 2020. And, and so there really was these, what I thought were kind of fringe ideas that were for a while kind of front and center. These things like defunding the police or abolish ICE or, we shouldn't ever prosecute any crimes or we shouldn't have any laws against drug use and, ever. Right. And so, I mean, look, that's how Trump won. He didn't run against 2024 Kamala. She backed off all that stuff in 2024. They ran against 2019 Kamala, where she endorsed all that stuff. And you're pissed off at 2019 or 2020 Bob Ferguson, but Bob Ferguson in 2024
was a fake, was a fraud, was a phony.
He's a fake. I think he's changed his position. I mean, he ran on adding cops.
How convenient is that?
I think the Democratic Party. I think I don't think that Democratic Party has acknowledged this, explicitly enough. I've been an outspoken critic on that front. But I do think they have backed away from some of the more controversial and kooky, stuff that was leading to bad, that was just sort of, can I say the word?
You can swear.
Yeah. The kind of batshittery, the activist back and also the censoriousness of like shouting people down, if you have any doubts or any deviation from, there was a period there where people felt like they couldn't say it.
They still feel that way to a certain extent.
Yeah. But it's not completely clear, but it's better than it was. In 2020, I wouldn't have said some of the things. I just shut up too, right? I was like, this is crazy, but I'm not going out there. I'm going to get my ass handed to me.
Look me in the eye, Sandeep, and you tell me, no, don't turn away.
No, I'm going to get a drink. I got to have a drink of this.
You believe in your heart of hearts. I'm waiting for you to look me in the eye again.
I'm looking.
You believe in your heart of hearts that Bob Ferguson is going to be a public safety governor.
Depends on how you define a public safety governor. It may not be the Republican version of a public safety governor, but yes, I think he's going to run out there and now try to like defund the police or make it so that, people can, use fentanyl. No, I don't think he's going to do any of that stuff. I understand why people fear that stuff because there was
drug decriminalization 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people did, right? The voters of Oregon passed a ballot measure in 2020 decriminalizing all use of hard drugs, right? Like it was a different moment in time, and yes, things have changed. And yes, I do think Bob will live up to his commitments that he made during this campaign, that he's going to do more to kind of fund some of these, add more cops, fund some public safety.
Where's he going to get that money with a $10 billion budget deficit?
We will see. I think there's going to be a very hot revenue conversation in Olympia in the upcoming session. I'm already hearing stuff about that, and the business community is already getting wound up. And so
it just seems naive to me. And I hate to call you naive because I know you're not.
Yeah.
But when I see someone who is acting like a totally different human being than they have been for the last 10, 15 years, call me crazy for doubting that.
Yeah.
Call me crazy for doubting that. Yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not the crazy one in that scenario. You can watch that full interview on Sundays with subscribers, undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com to sign up. And like, look, I don't think I got a satisfactory answer from Sandeep there about how he explains that, like how he cares about all these other things that are clearly issues killing people quite literally, but he's still like, yeah, but Bob Ferguson's my guy. There's a disconnect there that I really do have a hard time understanding. I think in order to truly figure out how we move forward, I have to be able to understand it. My goal was to understand it genuinely from the bottom of my heart from Sandeep, but the answer doesn't help me get there. And maybe it really just comes down to this real hatred for Donald Trump that is so all-consuming that you don't think straight. So maybe that it's going to take Donald Trump just getting done with his second term and someone else coming in. But this idea that the media won't vilify whoever replaces Donald Trump in the exact same way if it's a Republican. So I think that's the key, guys. Everything we talk about on the show all the time, every show we did leading up to the election, that's the key and the thing that we have to unlock to move the state forward. What is it? What is it actually in their heart or mind that keeps people voting for someone like Bob Ferguson, despite the clear and devastating consequences of their policies? That's what we have to work on from now until the next election in trying to actually genuinely understand. I don't know how we do that. I gave it my best shot there. I didn't come away understanding it any better. But it's a question we have to continue to ask people who did vote that way and who are okay voting for those same policies, despite the deadly consequences of those policies.